Season 3 opens on a cold winter's day. Thomas and Percy are complaining about how cold they are. In particular, their funnels, with Percy even stating that he would like a scarf for his funnel. Thomas laughs at the idea. We cut to Sir Topham Hatt, who's doing what a bunch of other rich idiot douches do. He sits in the nice, warm temperature with hot soup while his workers are doing the hard crap. He also tries to pack some trousers because he's meeting some very important people. Percy goes about his day, freezing his booty cheeks off, all while still wanting a scarf. Henry laughs at the idea that engines don't really wear scarves. And Percy's like, yeah, but I need it for my nice long funnel because you have a short little funnel. There's a dick joke that can be made here, but I don't know what. We cut to a station where Sir Topham Hatt's luggage is getting carried across the railway. Percy, however, thinks it'll be funny if he tries to sneak up on the coaches and give them a good scare. But he ends up being so quiet that the workers don't hear him coming, and so Percy crashes into the luggage with all of the luggage flying all over the place. He gets jam covered all over himself and all the people around him, and he even gets Sir Topham Hatt's hat on his lamp and his trousers on his funnel, getting his scarf. Sir Topham Hatt tells Percy not to do that crap again, and then Percy heads back to the shed, saying, hey, maybe engines shouldn't have scarves after all. The next episode starts off with Thomas picking up some children. Percy states on how he would really like to carry some children in some coaches and crap. Thomas says, hey, maybe you can handle this one. I'm going to sit this one out. Deal? Percy says deal. And Percy has a little argument with Harold the helicopter, stating on how he doesn't need the sky to go anywhere because he's got rails. Percy and Harold's little pissing match continues from last season, I can see. Edward then warns Percy that the weather's going to be a little dangerous, so be careful. But Percy's like, nah, I'm good. Once Percy gets Annie, Clarabelle, and the children, it starts to rain. Pretty nasty. Percy goes along his way, the rain gets rougher, and then Percy finds himself in a bit of a flooded area where he is unable to move because the water has gotten up to his fire. His driver, fireman, and even the conductor try to find some more firewood, and then Harold comes by to drop hot chocolate and some drinks for the passengers. Percy's fire is now all nice and lit, and he finally makes it to his destination, fulfilling Thomas's promise, with Sir Topham Hatt being very proud of him. These episodes were fun childhood favorites of mine. I really liked revisiting the jam episode, and the water flood episode was also pretty fun and pretty enjoyable. So again, more classic episodes within the third season. Very much enjoyable. Highly recommend these. Season 3, episode 3 opens up with Gordon just running as fast as he possibly can and yelling to the coaches so they can get to the station on time. Gordon then gets the express up and running. We cut to the sheds where Sir Topham Hatt tells Gordon that James will be pulling the express the next day. Gordon is not pleased. So James is running the express, and he's all happy and shit, and he's even boasting to Toby about how great of an engine he is. Then Sir Topham Hatt shows up again, tells Toby that he needs to go to the works and get taken care of. And so Toby heads on over there. He tries to stop for water, but the signalman doesn't recognize who Toby is and tells him to get the fuck out and make room for James. So Toby leaves with very little water. It's because he's brown, isn't it? Toby runs out of water eventually and stops in the middle of his tracks, literally. Then Percy and Henrietta stop by, and Toby's driver's like, hey, can you get some help? We're kind of fucked here. So Percy's like, hey, yeah, cool, dude. And then they tell James to come and get Toby. And James is like, fuck that shit. I don't really want to do that, but I guess I'll do it anyway. So he pushes Toby all the way to the station. And the kids think that James needed help pulling the express. And that's the episode! Gordon and the famous visitor opens up with a celebrity engine visiting the island of Sodor named City of Churro.
Oh my god, where the fuck is his face? How does he have a face? He's a tree! He's well-designed face and he doesn't have a face! Like, imagine if you just saw some guy down the street who didn't have a face! That's what's happening here! Where the fuck is his face?
Oh, and apparently he had a lovely chat with the rest of the engines, somehow, without a fucking face!
Okay, full disclosure, I don't give a shit about the rest of the episode. Apparently it's about Gordon losing the top of his dome or whatever, but how come absolutely nobody brings up the fact that that train doesn't have a fucking face? Now, the engine displayed in this episode is a real-life train who actually exists. So, I guess the reason he doesn't have a face because he's just in our reality, but that just begs the question. Are there other islands or areas within this world of Thomas the Tank Engine where some trains have faces and other trains just don't? Like, what the fuck is going on here? The rules of this show are just so fucking weird. You'd think it'd just be simple as, oh, the trains can talk and so can other vehicles, but like, there are several different cars and boats in the background that just don't have faces at all. You have characters like Birdie, who's a bus, but he can talk and has a face, but Sir Topham Hatt's little blue car that he drives all the time doesn't have a face at all. There are tons of different boats in the background, yet later on in the series we'll only get to see like 2 or 3 boats with actual faces, and my god, like, what the actual fuck is up with the rules of this universe? Like, the coaches, a lot of the coaches don't have faces at all, but somehow they can still talk too? Like the express coaches in Henrietta don't have faces, yet somehow Gordon and Toby, respectively, are able to have full-blown conversations with them. Same with what we see of City of Trevor in this episode. Like, what the actual fuck, Reverend?
He had a face in the book? Well, then why the fuck did they remove it? Donald's duck. Oh, that's funny. That's funny, Allcroft. Donald's duck opens up with Sir Topham Hatt giving Duck his very own branch line. Duck is obviously very excited about this. His first day with his very own branch line starts off and continues to go really, really damn good. Until later that night where he is in the shed talking about his day to Donald, and Donald just quacks at him. You get it? You get it?
Because his name is Duck.
The next day, Duck talks about it to his driver and fireman, and the two of them think of a way to get back at Donald by putting a goddamn duck inside of him. That's one way to get back for revenge, but it's okay because Donald's driver and fireman put an egg in Duck's shed. So Donald got the last quack after all, laugh after all. Fuck, I need to remember these words. I need to read them off the script.
Will you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to watch Thomas the Tank Engine!
In the next episode, Thomas is just doing his shit on his branch line until he comes to a stoplight. And Percy's like, hey, Thomas, don't you get late or else the fat guy's gonna kill you. And Thomas is like, I'll be fine. The next day, Thomas is just chugging along until a signalman flags him down saying that a school bus had crashed down and stopped working and the kids need a way to get back home. So Thomas takes a big old detour in order to help the kids, but as a result, he's super duper late. On a side note, was the school bus alive too? And if so, did it like die or are they just not walking? Or is it like the Thompson Friends equivalent of being handicapped or disabled? Like what the fuck is going on here? The next day, Thomas arrives to grab his passengers from Knapford Station, only to see Sir Topham Hatt isn't there. Thomas, smiling now, leaves with his passengers, only to come across a very bumpy track that ends up derailing him, and so he has to give his passengers to birdies so that they can go off, because Thomas can't really go on this track anymore. The passengers enjoy Birdie for his help, and eventually the track gets fixed so Thomas can go on the track once again, and so he thanks Birdie for helping. These episodes are fine, basic, run-of-the-mill Thomas and Friends episodes. Nothing bad, but nothing spectacular either. The type of fun, simple stories that you expect from Thomas the Tank Engine that aren't super-duper classics like a lot of the ones that we'll be seeing earlier. And I've also started to notice that the lighting is also different here than it was in the previous seasons, where it's not as bright as Season 2 was, but not as dimly lit as Season 1 was. It's somewhere right in the middle. It looks beautiful, though. It looks really good, and it gives the models a massive sense of scale. It looks really good. But yeah, pretty decent episode.
Thomas, Percy, and the dragon follows Percy teasing the fuck out of Thomas, because, let's be honest, what best friends don't fucking hate each other? And Percy is in particular teasing Thomas about the time he scared him, because Thomas thought Percy was a ghost. Yeah, tying into the first Halloween episode. It's almost Halloween time. It's the 21st night of September today. And so, the next day, Sir Topham Hatt comes to the shed and tells Thomas to get something quite unusual from the docks. So Thomas heads there. And then we cut to Percy, who's out. But his driver ends up just leaving him because it's time for tea. So Percy's out there. Cutting back to Thomas. Thomas is waiting for his shipment. And turns out it's a giant paper Chinese dragon. Thomas is scared shitless because he thought the dragon was real for a second. But his driver informs him that, oh, don't worry, Thomas. It is just for the carnival tomorrow. And so, Thomas drives back by Percy. And Percy opens his eyes a little bit. He's like, holy shit, he's a dragon! It's a dragon! Percy, the next day, tells everybody about the dragon, but everyone thinks Percy's fucking crazy because dragons aren't real. Wow, like, magical shit doesn't exist in the world of Thomas and Friends. Are you stupid, Percy? Like, what type of idiot would try to include magical elements into this show that basically has no magic? So, anyway, later on, Percy's at a station thinking that he just made up the dragon. But then he sees the dragon, but it turns out it's just a float being carried by Thomas. And so we end the episode with a nice little message that said, hey, we sometimes get scared, but admitting we're scared makes us brave. Nice little message for the kids, you know? In the next episode, Percy and Duck are tired because they have been working at the harbor all day, all by themselves. So Sir Topham Hatt sends in another engine to help them, and it's Diesel. Percy and Duck do not like Diesel, so they beg Sir Topham Hatt, hey, can we work with literally any other engine? We do not want to work with Diesel. He's a fucking dick. But Topham was like, look, man, he was the only engine available, so we're gonna have to make do. And Diesel's just being a bunch of little asshole. He's shunting, shoving the trucks, like derailing them, stuff's flying all over the place. Like, it's really getting really bad. Like, everybody hates him. Even the passengers, they hate him. Like, but things finally go to a halt when Diesel accidentally shoves a bunch of freight cars filled with clay down into the river. Sir Topham Hatt takes note of it, gets the cars out of the water, and lets Diesel go. Dude! What the fuck, Topham? You good? You getting some sleep lately? Holy shit, man! Bruh! You got the good shit on you? Off of the project. And then Percy and Duck, they're back to work. Yeah, that's the episode. Not particularly memorable, the Diesel one. But, by God, Thomas Percy and the Dragon was an absolute classic for me as a kid. Like, I remember I had the little wooden railway dragon toy that I played with a lot. It was really cool. I think I treated it like it was an engine or something, just to be fun. So yeah, that episode has a special place in my heart. Absolute classic for me. Nice to know that we're still getting these 3 seasons in. Hopefully, we'll get a lot more to come. So yeah, good episode. No Jokes for James opens up with James's driver complimenting the crap out of him, saying on how much of a really useful engine he is. There's that word again. Really useful engine. We'll come back to that when we finish talking about this episode. He's such a good engine. He can carry express coaches and freight cars. He's got the best of both worlds. He's like the bisexuals of trains, man. And so he's bragging about this to Thomas and Percy and Gordon, and they're all like, James, shut the fuck up, you piece of shit. But here's the thing. James really wants to pull the express. Even though he literally did it in the last episode, he wants to do it again. And so he tricks Thomas into thinking that Sir Topham Hatt wants him to carry the express and Gordon to carry some freight cars. And so Thomas and his driver go along with it, and James takes the express. Gordon and his driver are pissed that they have to take freight cars. And then James arrives to a station. Sir Topham Hatt is there. And Sir Topham Hatt's like, James, you motherfucker, I'm gonna kill you. And he doesn't actually kill or scrap him, which is very likely, given what we see in this show. If James just does something that Sir Topham Hatt doesn't really like at all, he very well might just kill him. So he's put in the shed for the rest of the day. The other engines are laughing at him for being silly. Those are the exact words from George Carlin in this episode. And so the next day, James is back to work. He's shunting cars and pulling freights, red and green and blue. They're the really useful crew. Until a railway inspector comes up to James saying that he needs to have a meeting with Sir Topham Hatt and he doesn't need to be late. And so takes him to Sir Topham Hatt. The inspector tells him that James gave him a really good ride and that you must be very proud of him. And Topham's like, yep, I'm proud of him. Definitely not like a toxic work environment here. Definitely not a dictatorship with the whole really useful shit. Nothing sus about this situation at all. Next episode, Thomas and Percy run the mail train. However, Percy is late delivering all of his mail because Henry ended up arriving late to give him the shit. Also, Harold being a dick. And so, the head of the mail is complaining to the mail trains that, hey, you're getting the mail late. What the fuck? And so, Thomas and Percy rush through getting the mail as fast as possible to appease them. Thomas stops to help a man get home along the way. And he writes a note to the mail trains saying they're a good job. That's the episode. That's a nothing episode. That mail episode. It was another one like the mud episode where I forgot about it, then I rewatched it. But now I can understand why I forgot about this episode because there really is nothing to it. There's more of Percy's hatred towards Harold. It's more just Thomas and Percy doing their shit. Just more Thomas and friends. And yeah, the previous episode, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. Technically autumn now, but I kind of forgot to get my other fall costume out of storage, so I guess I'm just wearing this for a couple more days. So anyway, Trust Thomas opens up with Thomas just going along with his merry little way. And then Birdie is running on the bumpy road, complaining that the road's too bumpy because the railway was supposed to deliver tar to smooth out the road, but didn't. Thomas says, "He'll make sure it happens. You can trust me." And then we cut to the quarry. And James hates the fact that he's shunting trucks and pulling freights. I'm not going to sing the theme song again. And Gordon suggests that he makes up a little lie to get himself out of this one, because that worked so well last time. It worked just splendid. Basically, James makes up the fact that he is sick, so Thomas has to do his work for him. He gets all the shit done, but the trucks decide to derail Thomas, and it's a whole mess. So Thomas tells Edward, who ends up picking him up, about the tar. Turns out the tar is at Edward's station, and the tar is put on the road, and everyone's all happy-dory. Also, Thomas has a toad.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially halfway through season 3. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. We are halfway through season 3 of Thomas and Friends, and usually this is where I like to reflect on what we've seen so far and what we're going to see in the future. The thing about Thomas and Friends is that there's so many fucking seasons of this show, and trying to come up with one of these for every single season, that's going to be hard. But I definitely got one thing I would like to add and mention, and that being the humans in the show. Humans are all over the island of Sodor. It's not like tugs or cars where humans just don't exist for some reason. With Thomas and Friends, humans are very present in this world. Can you name a single one of their names outside of Sir Topham Hatt? No, you can't. Because the thing is, these humans, they aren't fucking characters at all. They are hardly even plot devices. Like, none of them have names. They are all either Thomas's driver or Thomas's fireman, or say Gordon's driver and Gordon's fireman, or literally any engine, and that's their driver and that's their fireman. Sir Topham Hatt is the only human character that we've seen in the show so far who has a fucking name. Technically, the only other character is Mr. Conductor, who canonically is a character on the island of Sodor, but he never showed up in the show so far, so he doesn't count yet, which is quite odd to me. I know it's weird to focus on the humans in a show about talking trains. Imagine you were watching a Muppet movie and none of the humans have any names. All the Muppets have names, but all of the humans are just nameless entities. And they all look the same. Like, literally. Everyone is just some wooden-looking white dude. Every driver and every fireman looks like the exact same person. And I know why they all look the same. It saves a lot of money to just reuse the same wooden models over and over and over again for these like rotations of nameless drivers and firemen. Like, oh, we got to make sure that Thomas's driver looks different from Bill and Ben's driver or Boko's driver. Like, nobody's thinking that while making this show. I guarantee you they are not thinking that way at all later on in the show when it switches to computer animation, or even in All Engines Go when it switches to hand-drawn animation. But still, kind of feels weird that, like, the drivers have, like, no character. Like, none, like, these are literally a part of these trays. They are inside of them all the time. Wow, that sounds horrible, but you know what I mean, right? Later on, as the series progresses, the writers just forget that trains need people to operate them, and so the trains do things that no person would do, like, smartly, like, at all. I believe I made a joke about this in one of the episodes of Thomas and Friends Abridged.
Gee, you'd think that the driver who is inside of me right now would be more willing to go the correct fucking path, you know? I don't know, I guess drivers don't exist in this era of the show.
Which, if you haven't seen that show, please check it out. I think it's pretty funny. I'm biased because I fucking made it, but you know, it's just ludicrous to me. There's also weird implications about the world of this show. Like, seriously, why the fuck doesn't City of Trevor have a face? And how is he able to communicate with the other engines? He doesn't have a face. Like, is the world of this show, like, just whatever? Like, anything could talk? Like, can that trash can right over there talk?
My god, man, I never thought I'd hear her ask. So, the thing is, I'm tired of hearing your garbage, man.
You know, like, in my world is fucking weird. I live in a fucking weird-ass universe. Like, for God's sake, one of my best friends is a talking SpongeBob plush, but not this SpongeBob plush. No, this is just a pillow. Yeah, for some reason, this is a pillow, yet the SpongeBob plush that I know is sentient and has been my best friend for like 8 years. And I live with like 20 other puppets and like 3 people who look exactly like me. And I fight demons and robots and... What the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, the logic of Tom's and Friends, the logic of this children's show with talking trains, little weird lore going on here, you know? Thomas and Friends has lore. That's all I have to say. Let's move on to episode 14.
In Mavis, we're introduced to Mavis. Yes, this is actually Mavis's first appearance. It's kind of hard to believe that she was introduced in season 3 and not earlier in the series. But anyway, she works at the quarry and she shuns freight cars. But she likes to put them in different places every time to mess with Toby a little bit. And Toby's fucking sick of it. So he just says, "You goddamn bitch, how about you pull this shit for a change?" Yeah, that's the Toby voice for Thomas and Friends Abridged. Anyway, Mavis is pleased to hear about this. But before she does this, she has a conversation with Diesel saying, "Oh, us diesel engines can do way more than those steam engines." That's the Diesel voice for Thomas and Friends Abridged. Anyway, so Toby tells Mavis about his route and the very steep hill he has to go through, and you have to stop at a very specific point so that the trucks don't fuck with you. But Mavis doesn't listen to any of this. So she goes on ahead and doesn't stop at the right spot, and she ends up being stuck there until all the people try to put like sand on the tracks and it doesn't work. Then Toby comes by to help her and pushes her, and all's well that ends well. These episodes are pretty good. They're decent little episodes. I swear to God, the only thing I remember from the first episode is the fact that there was a toad. I remember the toad. And I do remember this Mavis episode quite a bit. So, nice to unlock these memories again. Sorry that these past few episodes have been really shitty, just me holding the camera. The reason being because I kind of had to put a lot of these episodes into, like, rush quickly because I was going on vacation. But vacation's over now, which means Monday's video should be all nice and normal with the voiceover and shit, so stay tuned for that.
Toby's tightrope opens up with Mavis still feeling bad about what happened in the previous episode. Percy tells her to just get over it and let Toby just do his thing. Mavis is like, nah. So she puts the trucks in the way that Toby likes it, but in order to do so, she'll have to go on Toby's line a little bit. As the weather changes in the coming days, Mavis wants to go further down the line, but without it seeming like her fault. So she talks to the trucks and have them go ahead and butcher whenever they get to the crossing. However, Toby ends up picking the trucks instead, but the trucks still end up pushing him over the line, and Toby ends up going fast and is unable to stop. However, the weather ended up making the bridge up ahead very rickety and starts to fall apart to the point where it's basically just a tightrope. And Toby ends up on this bridge and is stuck there. A bunch of workers and Mavis come to help get the trucks off the track and gets Toby off too. Toby and Mavis make up and all's well and that ends well. Oh, scratch that. Trevor's in the next episode. God fucking damn it. Trevor says that the vicar is having a fun little garden party later on, and that he's going to put posters all over the place, and he's going to give all the rides to all the people on the island. But then time goes by, and it turns out that the vicar was so busy that he forgot to put up the posters, and now Trevor can't give any rides to any of the children. Oh my god.
I can't remember if Trevor shows up outside of the original classic series or even the model series, like, at all, but I really hope he doesn't because he creeps me out. He's so uncomfy. He reminds me too much of my uncle. I don't want to watch the rest of this episode. I'll see you tomorrow.
Buzz opens up with James approaching. Oh my god, Trevor's in this episode? Really? Alright, let's just get past this part.
Boko tells James not to mess with the bees.
We cut to the dock where Bill, Ben, Boko, and Duck are all shunting cars and all their cargo and shit. James shows up, and Duck and Boko tell him to be careful when he has to ship the bees. But James is like, fuck that shit. Bees are just insects, you pussies. And so we cut to Napper Station, where James is about to carry off the bees. But someone drops the bees, and the bees are all over the place. And holy shit, they're animated. This is really weird to see. The bees take home right on top of James, and just as added flavor, one of the bees stings James right on the nose. His nose is just about as red as he is. James tries everything in his power to get the bees off of him, but no matter what he does, they just won't come off. Finally, they figured out to just take James to the vicar, and the bees just fly off of James and head straight towards the bee houses. And yay!
They also call James Rudolph the Red-Nosed Engine.
The next episode's about boats! As in, Duck wants to explore beyond the sea. But he can't really do that because, you know, he's trained. Harold comes by saying that he gets to explore the sea all the time and lands on several different boats. Are those boats alive? We don't fucking know yet. So Percy is bitching about Harold because the two of them still have a bit of a rivalry going on. And it's the Yoko Ono alarm! Turns out that a man helping out with the regatta has hurt his hand badly. And so Harold will be dropping off the man to take him to the hospital. Harold delivers the man at the harbor, and Duck takes him to the hospital. Realizing his place, Duck is content knowing the fact that he'll most likely never be out on the sea. And he's perfectly fine knowing that the greatest adventures will be one that only lives within his imagination. Holy fucking shit, that shot goes hard. So the bee episode for me is undoubtedly a classic for the sole reason of the image of James with the red nose. Like, that shot and that image has always stuck with me and a lot of other Thomas fans as kids. And the other episode isn't really all that memorable outside of that ending shot, which is fucking beautiful, to be honest. But yeah, neither of these are bad episodes. They're quite enjoyable and fairly charming and nostalgic. One Good Turn opens with Bill and Ben playing tricks on the workmen, and they're just not happy about it. Later, Sir Topham Hatt arrives and tells them about some goods in the yard, and tells them to head on over there to help all the other engines. After teasing Boko saying that they're going to take his job, the two are then put to work. Bill then heads on the turntable, but the guy operating it didn't realize it that he put it onto the wrong track, and Bill and Ben end up bumping into each other. This results in a massive argument between the two, and they refuse to work with each other. After talking to the twins, Boko and Edward think of an idea to get them to stop arguing and to work together again.
Gee, it's good to
Work.
together again.
Sir Topham Hatt approves of the idea. Basically, they get Ben to shove this massive train all by himself, but because he's so small, he can't do it. And so Bill helps him out. All's well that ends well. They make up, and then they kiss afterwards. Okay, so the version I found for this episode on YouTube in the best quality was actually the UK version, so this is the first episode we'll be discussing here today that features Michelangelos as the narrator. So, yeah, we won't really be seeing any more Ringo Starr anymore. Sorry, I miss you, baby. James thinks that Gordon is using way too much coal, and Duck thinks that Gordon is using way too much water. Gordon doesn't really like any of these people, just nagging at him and trying to educate him, in his own words. While at the harbor, Gordon comes across a visitor with 2 tender engines, thinking that that's just what he needs. But Diesel comes by, saying that it doesn't matter because the diesels are going to wipe out all steam engines. Wait, what?
We diesels are taking over and we don't need tenders to make us important.
Oh my god, they are straight up about to commit genocide. What the hell, Reverend? So yeah, Gordon not only talks about how much he wants the 2 tenders, but he also expresses his frustration over Diesel wanting to commit genocide. He goes to Sir Topham Hatt and asks him if there's going to be a steam engine genocide, and he says, no, don't be stupid. Gordon also asked him what was the deal with the engine with the 2 tenders. And he says that the visitor comes from a railway where it is very, very long with a lot of miles, so he needs an additional tender to support the coal. And I guess that makes Gordon feel better. However, Henry wants additional tenders. Duck and Donald decide to go ahead and mess with him a little bit. Duck saying that he has a grand total of 6 tenders that he could just give away to someone. He was going to give it to Donald, but Henry, asking for forgiveness, says, hey, I want those 6 tender engines. And then he gets the tenders, and he looks stupid. So yeah, these episodes were fine. They're okay. They're honestly nothing really to write home about. I'm not that big of a fan of Bill and Ben, so seeing episodes revolve around them are kind of not entertaining for me. I just find them pretty annoying. And the second episode, I can't help but to get my mind off of 2 things. 1, the whole genocide thing. And 2, we don't know the name of the mysterious visitor with 2 tenders. Except for the fact that we do, but I'll reveal it sometime later. But for now, yeah, these episodes are pretty mid. Escape opens up with Douglas trash-talking Trevor, which makes a lot of sense given on how, Trevor's a pedophile. But Edward says that the 2 would probably like each other since they can both relate to almost being scrapped, which is like fucking Voldemort to them.
Douglas gasped. Don't mention that word. It makes me wheels wobble.
What we have over here is several of our main characters getting traumatized over almost getting murdered. This is a show for children. And even though Douglas is terrified of scrap and being scrapped, he's in the scrapyard that night where all the diesel engines are working. He hears a mysterious steam engine noise, and turns out it's a brand new engine who's about to be fucking scrapped. So, murdered. This is Oliver. He is trying to escape his fate of getting murdered along with his brake van, Toad. So Douglas is like, hey man, we can't let this happen. I'll try to sneak you out. So they manage to successfully sneak Oliver and Toad out. And Douglas tells all the other engines about the next morning. And they're like, hey, we could actually use another steam engine on this island. And Sir Topham had agreed. Oliver and Toad are given a nice new fresh coat of paint, and they are put on Duck's branch line. So now they're really useful again. That was fucked up. Oh, but the next episode's not dark. It's just Oliver working on Duck's branch line, reciting some of his older adventures that we don't get to know at all, and all the engines just fucking love him. And the fan gets to his head a little bit and starts to pick fights with some of the other engines. And then the trucks don't like him. Yeah, the cars, they don't like him at all. And so they end up derailing him and dumping him into the turntable. And he learns his lesson. And he never fucks with cars again. And who the fuck cares after what that last episode was?
Here's the thing. Like, when you really think about it, like, when you really, honest to God, think about it, Oliver almost fucking died. He almost got murdered by the people at the scrapyard. This episode just further states that the island of Sodor is a dictatorship where these trains are forced to do slave labor by the dictator that is Sir Topham Hatt, the Fat Controller. And whenever these trains aren't deemed really useful anymore, he just fucking kills them. He doesn't give them a retirement plan or something. He doesn't just set them off just to dick around. He doesn't even just put them in a shed. He just kills them. Happened with Trevor. Almost happened with Donald and Douglas. And now it's happened to Oliver. And so I propose a theory that in the foreseeable future of this series, whenever an engine just stops showing up, we can assume that they've been scrapped and they're fucking dead.
In Bulgy, we're introduced to Bulgy the bus, who, unlike Birdie the bus, is a bit of an asshole who wants the entire railway to go away. Not just steam engines, but literally all fucking trains. So this man just straight up wants genocide. Duck tells Oliver about the situation, Oliver revealing that he actually knows the bus. So he tells him not to worry about it. But then Oliver comes back and's like, yeah, Bulgy's trying to steal our passengers, so he's kind of being a dick. Back at Knapford Station, Bulgy declares himself as a railway bus. Duck and Oliver are like, hey man, stop that shit. But Bulgy just says,
Yaboo snubs!
I'm sorry, what?
Yaboo snubs!
Can you just repeat that for me one more time?
Yaboo snubs.
Yaboo snubs? Is that some type of British slang I'm not aware of? Because if not, then what the fuck does that even mean? Anyway, Bulgy decides to take a little shortcut, but as a result, he ends up getting stuck under a bridge. Luckily, Duck was there and was able to get the passengers off safely. But whatever happened to Bulgy? Did Sir Topham Hatt stop by and give him a good old lecture like he does to all the other engines and vehicles on the island? No! He turned him into a fucking henhouse! Okay, granted, Bulgy was a bit of an asshole. Downright genocidal, but still, man, that's kind of a fucked up punishment for what all he essentially did was get stuck under a bridge.
I don't ever wanna feel.
Gonna be pretty hard to do that now that you're a fucking henhouse. Speaking of Gen X music, our next episode is Heroes. Bill and Ben are getting tired of working at the quarry until they get a call from Sir Topham Hatt asking them to work on the main line a little bit. You know, shunting some trucks and pulling some freight cars and the express coaches. Gordon warns them to not fuck around because they're on the main line now, but Bill and Ben are like, yeah, we got this, we know what we're doing. And then the cars are just fucking with Bill and Ben, telling them to do the wrong things, and that ends up getting the express coaches super duper late for the day, and Gordon and the passengers are pissed. And so the day after that, Bill and Ben are put back in the quarry, and they're a little disappointed, but a rock slide is happening, and so Bill and Ben have to get all of the quarrymen out of there fast. But they left a workman behind, so they gotta go back and save his life, and Bill and Ben saved all these men's lives as the whole place just fell apart. And then Sir Topham Hatt declares them as heroes. Hip hip hooray. I will admit, the Bill and Ben episode is an alright Bill and Ben one. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Bill and Ben, but in terms of Bill and Ben episodes, this one wasn't that bad. The Bulgy the Bus episode, again, it's not horrible, but the ending is what really puts this one into fucked up dictatorship territories, because Bulgy was an asshole, but in terms of his crimes, all he did was just get stuck under a bus when other engines and other vehicles on this railway have done so much worse, and they just get a pat on the back and move on. Like, Bulgy might as well have just been scrapped at that moment, but hey, we'll see if we get to be able to top that tomorrow for the final video of SteamTember 2023. See, James and the Fruitful Day opens with Percy being late to the station, and James is fucking pissed at him.
That's no excuse, Percy. Nothing should stop us. Sir Topham Hatt relies on us to be on time.
Did I mention that I'm the asshole of the show yet?
James heads to the harbor in order to fetch some fruits because it's market day, bitches! With his fruits in hand, he boasts to Thomas about how much of a reliable, useful engine he is, and how not Percy is. So Percy is shunting cars and pulling weights until the station master tells his driver that James's brakes had break. And so Percy comes to help. Percy arrives and mocks James for the situation that he's in, and then Percy grabs James's cars. But, unknown to Percy, the switches for the rails were broken and switched on the wrong tracks. Percy ended up crashing into a crate that's on the rails, and all the fruit goes all over him. So Topham Hatt isn't really mad at Percy, given how it technically wasn't even his fault. But he's mad that the food got everywhere, so yeah. Cut to the shed, James and Percy feel bad. Thomas tells them to cheer up, you old bastards, and then they're like, okay.
It's Christmas time!
Halloween starts tomorrow. This episode has Thomas promising to give all the villagers some nice Christmas letters, but then a big old storm hits that night, and the next morning, the island of Sodor is covered with snow. Thomas talks to Percy about how much letters that he has to deliver. Percy being disappointed given how he doesn't have all that much letters to deliver. Thomas and Percy's drivers tell them that Sir Topham Hatt needs Thomas at the big station, so Percy has to take Thomas's train. Percy is just rolling along until a fogman flags him down, saying that the village has been cut off by snow and they need snowplows and workmen. Percy asks Harold to help, and him and Thomas go off and do the thing. With the collaborative work between Terrence, Thomas, Percy, and Harold, the village is all cleared. Also, Percy doesn't know who Santa Claus is somehow.
What's a Santa Claus? Asked Percy. Santa Claus is someone who drops presents down chimneys at Christmas time.
Percy, if you don't know who Santa Claus is, then how the fuck do you explain seeing this guy in last season's finale? That night, as a gift to the engines for helping them clear the village, the villagers set up a special surprise. And the next morning, it's revealed that they put up a bunch of Christmas decorations at the sheds. Oh my god, Merry Christmas, everyone!
Like I said, Halloween starts tomorrow. Wait a minute. This was the season 3 finale. You know what that means? That's right. Welcome back to the Train Count, the segment of the show where after every season, we tally up how many engines are on the island at this point. So at the end of season 2 last year, we added 8 total engines to the railway, making the grand total 15. Now, we weren't introduced to quite as many new engines as we were in season 2, so this is going to be a little lacking, but we were still introduced to some new trains, so let's get things started. Make a clear board so we have room for season 3. Our first new engine was in Gordon and the Famous Visitor, where we're introduced to City of Trero, the engine who famously doesn't have a fucking face and who is actually real. He's technically not one of Sir Topham Hatt's engines, but pickings are slim this season, so I'm gonna go ahead and count him anyway.
So that is one new engine for season 3. After that, we get our only diesel engine for the series in the episode Mavis, where we're introduced to Mavis. And she's probably second with Bogo for the nicest diesel engine that we've met so far in the series. She's not evil like Diesel or a bitch like Daisy, who didn't show up at all this season, by the way. It's 3 seasons in and we're already forgetting that characters exist. So we'll add. Then in the episode Tender Engines, we are introduced to the mysterious 2-engined character who, as I recalled, did not have a name in that episode. But here's the thing. He does. Much like City of Truro, this engine is actually a real-life engine who was just put into the Thomas and Friends universe. And he probably doesn't have a face either. This engine is called the Flying Scotsman. Yes, like the one from season 1, apparently. And even though we technically didn't see him fully, we did technically see him, and he's an engine. And again, pickings are slim this season. So we're adding him anyway. Fight me on this. And finally, yeah, we only got 4 new engines this season. We got introduced to Oliver in the episode Escape, and Oliver's alright. I will be completely honest, I kind of forgot Oliver existed after all these years. I never had a toy of him, and most of the episodes that I watched didn't feature him, so sorry, dude. But regardless, he is the final engine on the list. So that brings us to a total of 4 new engines for Season 3. Add that with Season 1's 7 and Season 2's 8. That brings us to a grand total of 19 engines on the island of Sodor. Well, technically 2 of them were visitors, so if you subtract that, that's actually 17 new engines. You see why I decided to count the visitors? But yeah, not a very impressive number, but trust me, that 19 is going to get way bigger. Like, way fucking bigger. Like Season 4 introduces the Narrow Age engine, so that's gonna be pretty big by the end of Season 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the whole 3 different transitions locations thing like every time we finish the season now, because I think it's fun. So that was Season 3, and it was more of the same. Even though there was a 5-year production gap in between Season 2 and 3, and there was a completely different narrator in the UK version of the show, it is still exactly the same as the first 2 seasons. There are still tons of classic episodes with a couple stinkers in there. There are tons of different memorable crashes and scenarios that the characters get into. Because if there's one thing that Thomas and Friends sets itself apart from all the other talking vehicle children's programming out there, it's those crashes, y'all. Like, I honestly believe that if Thomas and Friends didn't have those crashes, we would not be standing here talking about this franchise to this day. So yeah, not a whole lot to say on this one. Season 3 was also a very enjoyable watch. There were quite a few more episodes than usual where I forgot they existed entirely, but the memories all of a sudden came flooding back to me once I actually watched the episode again, which is kind of nice, you know? Overall, Season 3 was an enjoyable time, and I liked watching it. Transition number 4, we're in the woods now. We're also on a hill, so I probably shouldn't be leaning back. And that was SteamTember 2023. Thank you all so much for watching the videos this year. I know it wasn't as fun as last year, given on how a lot of our focus this year has been on Shining Time Station, but we did get to squeeze in some Thomas and Friends at the very end. Plus, it was still fun going over several different pieces of Thomas media that's not just the main show. Plus, if it wasn't for Shining Time Station, many American audiences wouldn't know who the Blue Train guy is. Nowadays, the grand majority of US and UK audiences don't know what Shining Time Station is. But regardless, I would like to thank you guys so much for watching SteamTember's second year, and hopefully you'll be joining us next year. And next year we'll also be off to a bit of a rocky start, because we will be starting things off with an entire season of Shining Time Station. That is all 20 episodes of Shining Time Station Season 2 before we can move on to Thomas and Friends Season 4. Hopefully you guys won't lose interest like you did this year.
you're going to lose interest.
My phone died, so I had to change locations again. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button and tune into all the other videos that we have on the channel. But until then, I'll see you later. Bye!